Good evening and welcome to the 2023 Penn South Candidate Forum. My name is Robert Sikorsky and I am one of the co-chairs of the 2023 Election Committee. The other co-chair is Charles Baird. We will be moderating tonight's event and thank you for joining us. This is the formal meeting for candidates who are running for the Penn South Board of Directors. This year, shareholders will be selecting 5 board members. The 5 candidates with the highest number of votes will each be elected for a term of 3 years. For information about Penn South electors, please visit the co-op's website, penn-south-dot-coop. Shareholders will soon receive a directed proxy form in the mail. You have 2 options for submitting the proxy form. You can return the paper form in the postage paid envelope, or you can submit your proxy via a secured web portal. Instructions are in the packet and sent to all shareholders in the mail. We encourage everyone to participate in the democratic process at our co-op by submitting a proxy form. You also help us achieve a quorum, and you will automatically be entered in a raffle for gift cards worth up to $1,000. If you wish to change your selection, that is your vote, you can still vote in person on November 12th, and your vote will supersede your proxy. Now I will explain to you the rules of tonight's event. The rules are designed to give the candidates a fair and equal opportunity to answer questions and to make their own statements. There are 9 candidates. Prior to this event, we randomly drew numbers to determine the order in which the candidates speak. For each round of questionings, we will reverse the order, meaning on the first round 1 to 9, then 9 to 1, and so on. Each candidate will offer an opening statement of up to 3 minutes. We will then do 3 rounds of questioning and answers. In each round, candidates will have 2 minutes to respond. If a candidate does not require the full 2 minutes to respond to the question, they may end early, or they may use the remaining time to speak on a topic of their own choosing. Also, candidates are not required to answer the question that was posed to them. They have the option to use the time to speak on a different matter. At the end of the question and answer period, candidates will have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. The questions asked of the candidates at the meeting will come from written submissions made by shareholders and which were selected at random from these submissions. Before reading questions, we will state the name and building of the shareholder who posed the question. Please note that some of the questions posed by shareholders were directed to all candidates. Questions were randomly chosen, so at times you will hear the same question posted to different candidates at various times during tonight's event. I would like to remind you, all candidates, that they will be muted until their time to speak. Make sure to unmute yourself before talking and to mute yourself after talking. After your name is called, please pause and wait 3 seconds, 1, 2, 3, before speaking. Otherwise, you'll miss your cue and the effect of your speaking will be diminished. Thank you, and we're now ready to begin.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Charles Baird, co-chair of the Elections Commission. I will start the questioning with the opening statements. The first part of this program is opening statements. All candidates will have 3 minutes, as you've just been told, and we randomly selected the candidates prior to the start of the meeting. It will go from 1 to 9. The first person on this list is Kate Stack. Kate?
Hi, my name is Kate Stack. This is my first time running for the board, and I am a relatively new resident of Penn South. I've lived here for 6 years, and in that time, I have found a strong community that I'm very proud to be a part of. And I'm so excited to run for the board and hopefully give back to the community that I've already built here. I feel my newness to Penn South is actually a benefit to the board. I don't know how things have always been done here. I only know how it's been done while I've been here. But I know how to work with people. I know how to problem solve in a creative way. And I love to collaborate. But I also believe in accountability and in doing the right thing. It seems that many decisions on the board are made behind closed doors, and it's difficult to understand the reasoning for them. That makes me not feel as respected and cared for as I wish I was. I want a board that respects me, that treats me kindly, and that communicates with me. And that's why I'm running for the board. Thank you.
Thank you. And Matthew, you're on.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Matthew Borelli. I'm running for the Board of Directors of Penn South. I've been on the board for completing my 33rd year. I've served as president. I'm currently serving as treasurer. For those people who have voted for me, thank you. And I hope you consider voting for me again. And those who are meeting me for the first time, I would like you to consider voting for me. As treasurer, meeting our financial obligations is paramount to the work that I'm doing for the board and for you. Protecting Penn South's affordability is led by the ability to keep control of our expenses and our income. For 40 years, I've managed my financial services business, handling hundreds of accounts with an aggregate value of over $200 million. Prior to coming to Penn South, I was a tenant organizer in the Lower East Side, organizing rent strikes. Living in Penn South since 1989 with my family, we remain committed to keeping Penn South an affordable bastion in Midtown Manhattan. Looking forward, our Penn South community needs to navigate some serious financial issues. Global inflation and economic impacts caused by COVID are still impacting our financial situation. Inflation has caused things like taxes, insurance, labor, materials, fuel to go up dramatically. I think I'm uniquely qualified to help lead our board that must make some very serious financial decisions in the coming months. Please vote for me.
Thank you. Howard, you're next.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Howard Babich. I am running for the board of directors, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to tell you a little about myself and why I feel I'm qualified to serve on the board of directors. I moved to Penn South 15 years ago with my late husband, Roddy. 5 years after moving in, I was elected to the Co-op Council to represent Building 3B, which a position I still hold 10 years later. The work and the experience I had on the council was terribly rewarding. And I think it's rewarding because the work of the council is so important. Whether it's doing monthly walkthroughs of the building from top to bottom to point out needed maintenance work, and then working with maintenance division to make sure that work is done, whether it's called upon by management to help them educate cooperators on the use of the new HVAC system when that was installed, or on a more personal note, fighting for 4 years to get a plaque installed, and finally getting the plaque installed in front of the in front of the management office, highlighting the role that organized labor, and particularly the ILGWU, played in the creation of Penn South. Prior to moving to Penn South, I had the opportunity of serving on 2 co-op boards, one here in Chelsea and one in Queens. And I served on 2 community boards, Community Board 4 here in Manhattan and Community 3 in Queens. In addition to this, I had 30 years professional experience as a policy analyst and a budget analyst for 6 New York City municipal agencies. I think this work is particularly helpful, will be particularly helpful on the board, because quite often I had to be involved with finding innovative and creative ways of funding programs that were slated to be cut during times of fiscal constraint. I think in the years ahead, Penn South may be facing some major expenses, particularly capital improvements, and finding creative and innovative ways of funding those programs is going to be essential to certainly ward off any possible maintenance increase or assessment, which should be avoided at all costs. So I hope you find that work to be something that could be helpful to the board, and I look forward to getting your questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Lloyd, you're on.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lloyd Blazin. I'm running for my 4th term as a member of the board of directors. Been on the board for over 9 years now. And prior to that, served on the co-op council for Building 3B. Served as the chair and co-chair of the co-op council for 3 years. So learned a lot about how the board worked when I was in the council. I attended a lot of board meetings prior to my board experience. I believe that really helped prepare me to be a board member and to join other board members. And we have 15 board members, and it's quite a diverse group of people. Diversity is very good. We have people with financial acumen, we have attorneys, we have people who are attorneys, and we have who are community leaders. And so it's nice to have a diverse board. And for the last 3 years, I've been working on something that I felt was very important, aside from understanding what the board needs to vote on and understanding what's presented to us by management, our financial issues and the things that we need to approve of that management brings to us. So it's important that you understand and as a board member and study carefully all the material that's presented to you. But for the last 3 years, my focus has been primarily on one of my committees, which is the Shared Space Committee. And for a long time, we've had many community type of projects that have sort of been neglected. And only recently, we've been able to bring some of these ideas to the community. And those are in the Shared Space Committee now that is open to cooperators to join. So we've had a committee to open up a new green space where we've had cooperators weigh in. We also have plans to do a music studio, an art studio, and an adult rec room. So in each of those committee meetings, we bring in board members and cooperators to contribute their thoughts and to open up the committee so folks can participate in the decision-making process. When those committees have ideas that are formulated, then we present it to the board, and the board votes on it. And that's what's happened. We have a new green space on West 25th Street. We're going to be opening up membership to everyone in the co-op who wants to join. I'm very pleased about that. It took us a year and a half, and we did a survey. We had a lot of participation. And this is the way I see going forward with the other committees. They have community involvement and an open approach to our decision-making process. So I hope you'll think about that, and I hope I get your vote again. And I would thank you for participating tonight and watching all of this.
Thank you. Brian, your turn.
Thank you, Charles. My name is Brian Hammerstein. In my 15 years on the board, I've worked to keep our finances well managed, our home meticulously maintained, and our monthly charges affordable. Former board president Morris Benjamin, former board president Matthew Barilli, and longstanding board members Lloyd Blazin and Robert Sikorsky have endorsed me for re-election. I have a BA from Yale University and accounting certificates from the Wharton School of Business. As cooperators, we have several key decisions in front of us. We are about to renew our laundry contract, which will determine which machines we will use for many years to come. As the chair of the laundry committee overseeing the prior machine selection and renovation 10 years ago, no board member or candidate has more experience or greater knowledge to assure we make the right decisions to make laundry as pleasant, as rapid, and as energy efficient as possible. Our vendor can supply us with washing machines that have high-speed water extraction to leave our clothes holding less water at the end of the cycle. This will reduce drying time and make laundry easier to lift into dryers. As chair of the laundry committee 10 years ago, I required reversing dryers to avoid bunching and speed drying. Our next dryer should have moisture sensors that end heat once fabric dries to reduce gas consumption and to avoid burning delicate fabrics. The June 29th Penn South announcements included a ban on e-bikes and e-scooters that went into effect this past September 1st. As an importer of power construction tools that have gone through UL approval, I have the experience to understand that the rash of building fires have been caused by non-UL listed imported devices. According to the September 15th New York Times, UL Solutions is not aware of any UL tested and certified e-bikes that have caught fire. The Penn South Board should conform to the New York City Local Law 39, which took effect September 16, 2023. It permits e-bikes and e-scooters that use UL-approved drive systems. Penn South could issue license tags similar to the bike room tags already in use and educate security to enforce the regulation. Cooperators that own non-conforming devices may trade them in for new ones under a 2-year trade-in program funded by New York City. At the first meeting after this election, I will make a motion lifting the ban on UL-listed mobility devices. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Next candidate is Sasha.
Hi, I'm Sasha Tabachman-Smith. I hope you're getting to reconnect with things that bring you joy, some from the time before COVID and maybe even some new things. For me, it's been inspiring to see our community starting to come together in person again this year at our many wonderful community events. I'm running for re-election to the board of directors, which I've served on since 2014. I'm the first vice president, chair of the operations committee, and the co-chair of the electronic communications committee, aka the new website. I'm also honored to serve as the board liaison to the co-op council. Previously, I served on the co-op council for 9 years, during which I served as vice chair, chair of the grievance, and buildings and grounds committees. I have over 18 years of experience in information technology management, financial planning, budgeting, and operations management. As an information technology director for Columbia University, I am uniquely qualified to address the strategic long-term planning needed to keep Penn South affordable, limited equity, and financially sound. I've successfully advocated to expand our long-term savings to fund the next 10 to 20 years of capital projects. When I was elected, we had nothing close. I've been working with management on addressing our long-term energy needs, adapting to new local laws and an ever-developing global landscape. I've pushed for better communication with the office for cooperators, including email submission of documents, working to create a hybrid transition to email announcements, providing paper for those who desired. I've worked to make group and club membership renewals simpler through electronic and automatic means, and through my advocacy, more community rooms were made available for all, and access has been opened up to accommodate broader requests. I am a lifelong and proud resident of New York City, raised in West Beth in the West Village, a graduate of Columbia University, and I understand the importance of being part of a vibrant community. My grandmother was a long-term resident of Penn South. I have lived here for over 24 years now with my wife and our 2 young sons. I'm committed to the cooperative serving all members of the community, from toddlers to seniors. Raising a family here makes me passionate about both solving the challenges Penn South has today, while creating forward-thinking solutions for the future. Central to this is keeping Penn South affordable, well-maintained, and well-managed, now and in the future. I hope you vote for me for re-election To the Penn South Board of Directors, as first Vice President, I will continue to work tirelessly for you and provide leadership and oversight to help make sure Penn South is running smoothly today and in the years to come.
Thank you. Thank you, Sasha. Our next candidate is Jenna Feist.
Thank you so much. Good evening. My name is Jenna Feist. I'm a current board member, and I'm with you this evening to ask you to elect me to another term. I serve on our board of directors to support the community that I grew up in. I think Penn South is a very special place, and I want it to continue to succeed as a limited equity co-op. I strongly support limited equity housing, but it's not enough to believe in limited equity housing. Our co-op must be managed wisely in order to thrive. It's the board's job to oversee our management team and to help make important decisions. So who you elect, the board matters. And this year there's 9 candidates for 5 seats. So how can candidates distinguish themselves? I think there's 2 key issues that I'm focusing on for my own vote. The first issue is experience, and the second issue is transparency. In regards to experience, I believe my extensive experience distinguishes me from other candidates. First, I worked in the New York State Legislature for 6 years, so I have state political experience, state legislative experience, and state budget experience. Second, I've been a lawyer for over 2 decades, and I'm currently a public interest lawyer for New York State, so I have extensive legal experience. Finally, I was employed as a senior executive in 2 different multinational corporations for over 15 years. In those positions, I managed large, complex teams, including one of over 40 people. I also managed team budgets that were larger than our co-op's annual budget. So I have extensive business experience as well. So that's valuable experience that's critical to our cooperative success. The second issue I'm focusing on for my own vote is transparency. So it doesn't matter if someone has good experience if you can't trust them to represent you. Transparency is a broad 360-degree concept for me. It's about transparency with residents, transparency with other board members, transparency in general. To me, transparency means involving residents before decisions are made by the board. For example, a few years ago, the board was considering different options for the aging commercial building on 26th Street. It started to become clear that the building would be rebuilt or built up. I repeatedly said to the board, we need to talk to residents before any decisions are made, even if it has to be high level because of contract negotiations. That was ignored. I stood for transparency then, and I stand for transparency now. I recently voted against the fuel pass-through for similar reasons. I asked for more information and for the board to meet with residents before a decision was made. That didn't happen, so I voted against it. I'm also transparent when asked why I voted a certain way or why something was approved by the board. Board members should always be willing to answer your questions. They work for you, the owners of this corporation. And that's an important point, so I'm going to make it again. I believe that every resident should be treated like the owner they are. As a board member, I work for you. I'm endorsed by many current and past board members, which I think says a lot about my contribution to the board. If you re-elect me, I'll continue to use my experience to support our cooperative, to fight for your participation and protect our financial security. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Benjamin.
I'm Benjamin Jackson. I'm running for the board of directors. I've lived at Penn South for 12 years. I'm a man of good character, a man of integrity, and I work well with people. I'm honest, I'm confident, and I'm competent. I believe in myself. I'm committed to maintaining Penn South as an affordable housing community. Currently, I work as a mental health counselor in private practice for 24 years. In my private practice, I service individuals, couples, families, and group members who are experiencing negative effects of anxiety and depression. For 25 years, I worked in telecommunications and sales as an engineer and a system consultant for AT&T. I also worked as an educator in the New York City public school system. I worked as a volunteer chaplain at the Westchester Correctional Facilities in Valhalla, New York for 26 years. I'm an ordained minister. I pastored a church for 18 years in Westchester. I facilitated a group ministry for 15 years that connected to people to one another while helping them develop a healthy, supporting relationship to develop a sense of family and community. I served on the board of directors for Open Door Medical Facility in Westchester County for 4 years. I also served on the board of directors for Tax and Reassessment in Ossining, New York for 8 years, which was a fantastic board. My biggest achievement were to start my own business and become a published author who has written 2 books. For the past 8 years, I have donated 100 turkeys each year at the Elliott Chelsea's house. In conclusion, I am willing to discuss anything with any shareholder that would lead to their well-being. I believe that most problems can be solved by good communications. I have diverse work and professional experience.
Benjamin, your time is up. You're going to have to wrap up the sentence. Thank you.
I am committed and I care. Please vote for me.
Thank you. The next speaker is Tira, sorry about that, Tira Bluestone.
Thank you, Charles. My name is Tira Bluestone, and I am running for the board of directors of Penn South. The core values that represent and guide my actions are collaboration, innovation, service, and accountability. I believe in integrity. Each of us serves on the board for something far greater than ourselves, and I will faithfully execute the duties and responsibilities entrusted to me whilst maintaining the highest ethical and professional standards with vigilance to relentlessly identify and deter threats that pose a danger to our community and constantly be on guard against the dangers that threaten our values and our way of life here at Penn South. This requires creating an environment of psychological safety where people can be their authentic self, where they feel cared for, supported, and empowered, and always treated with dignity and respect, and where we can welcome accountability and responsibility from the actions of the people serving on the board. See, I believe every member on the board is defined by their dedication to selflessly serving the community. And more than a mission, my commitment is a calling to protect and defend the infrastructure that this community was built on and that we rely on every day. The Penn South board will only succeed if every one of us on the board takes active ownership of our mission, our words, and our actions. And I personally promise to model the behavior that I expect to see in others and to hold myself and the other board members accountable for their actions. I plan to empower our community through trust, transparency, and radical honesty. My core principles represent the ideal behaviors that will make us on the board individually and collectively successful. And this is what I aim to cultivate on the board and within our community. The goal is not about becoming a star. It's about building a constellation, and diversity on the board will bring the most creative solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Tira. Now it is time for the questions and answer period of the program. As a reminder, we will read the question and candidates have 2 minutes to respond. Candidates do not need to limit themselves to responding only to the question that was proposed. They are allowed to use the time to speak on any topic of their choosing. We will follow the same order of speakers as the opening statements. In this round, the first candidate will be Kate Stack. This question was directed to all candidates and comes from Jane Buchanan in Building 9. On August 28th, Community Board 5 held a meeting about the OWL bus company application for a long-haul bus stop at 28th Street and 8th Avenue, and the Penn South Board was not officially represented. So how would you handle an important city hearing occurring during the board's summer break month of August? Kate?
I think being a board member is a year-round obligation. The fact that if I'm hearing the question correctly, that the asker thinks nobody attended because it was summer is disappointing and I think a little embarrassing. I, as a board member, would represent people throughout the year, attending events and speaking with the community board and our other representatives to try to make Penn South the best place that it can be. I believe that the communication is key, and hopefully people would feel able to bring problems to me outside of the board business hours, I guess, that people think that we have, that the board has. And so I guess in short, it's a year-round obligation, and I would treat it as such. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, a question to Matthew Barilli. The question was directed to Matthew Barilli and comes from Rachel Appel in Building 7B. It came to light that a member of your family grossly misused their access to the Penn South Federal Credit Union personal information, deleting thousands of records. My family experienced great stress at that time when the PSFCU falsely accused us of not paying many bills and making our credit score as negligible for many months. As I know happens to many other cooperatives as well. I cannot confirm these issues are related. However, I am greatly concerned that many members of the board and staff of the co-op seems to be employed by the largest lender in our residence with little transparency into the PSFCU operation. Given other lenders who often market standard rates much lower than the PSFCU and have no ties to the co-op, such as ABE, are now available to us. Do you think it's time to move towards dissolving the PSFCU? I would like to also hear from any candidates of differing opinions from Mr. Barilli. Matthew?
So in so much that this is a personal question, or the nature of the beginning of the question was personal in nature, I don't know that it's really appropriate that it be asked of me. I can answer the question about the credit union itself. That 2005, the board of directors came to me and asked if I would rescue the credit union, which was going out of business. I agreed to do this. Then a few years later, when they doubled the equity, board again came to me and the credit union and said, "Can we provide a lending opportunity?" And we said, "We'll make that happen." No other lender was willing to do it. From time to time, the Penn South Credit Union has been the only opportunity for borrowing. Yes, there are now other lenders, which I have wholeheartedly encouraged and courted. I don't believe that the credit union has been a bad experience for the cooperative. I think it has provided a very important service that from time to time, it is the only player that can provide that service. I'll conclude my response just to say that I love my daughter dearly and that she made a bad decision and she's paid a price for it. And again, I'm disappointed that this question was even posed. Thank you.
As a moderator, Matthew, I'm going to go off that line a little bit and say that I'm sorry also that a personal question was asked to you. It should have never happened. That's all I can say. And you're not responsible for an adult child. All right, I'm going to move on. Okay. Next is Howard Babish. The question directed to Howard Babish and comes from Nikki Farrell in Building 1. What would you do to make Penn South more energy efficient and try to achieve some level of carbon neutrality?
Well, thank you, Nikki, for that question. It's a very important question. The board to date has taken some positive steps in this direction. They are currently replacing gas-powered equipment with electric equipment. They're upgrading the power plant. And there's a lot more that I'm sure they're going to do and can do. For example, there's something called PropTech, PROPTECH, which is a technology that properties can use to run and manage things such as laundry equipment and HVACs. The board really needs to look into this whole new PropTech technology. Also, there was a recent article in Cooperator News, a newspaper I'm sure everybody reads, highlighting what individual cooperators can do to help a co-op achieve energy efficiency. For example, installing LED light bulbs. LED light bulbs are about 75% more efficient than incandescent bulbs. Plus, they are about 1/10, they produce about 1/10 of the heat. Individuals could do that. Also, it's the DOE estimates that between 5 and 10% of a household's electrical use is from appliances that are in standby mode, plugged in but not being used. They could be unplugged. So what I would like to do is, if I get on the board, is work with the board's education committee to put together some sort of brochure or flyer or pamphlet highlighting what individual cooperators can do to help the co-op achieve energy efficiency and help themselves achieve energy savings. Thank you.
Thank you, Howard. The next question is to Lloyd. The question comes from Aaron Rudo in Building 6A. The issue with commercial building number 5 were long-standing and well-known to certain members of the board. These concerns were not shared in any details with cooperators. This secrecy may have led to the decision to lease Penn South property to a private developer, a decision that goes against the values of Penn South. Openness about these issues could have led to a better outcome, more in keeping the values of which Penn South was founded. Openness would not have harmed the decision-making process. Will you commit to sharing as much information as possible with cooperators about long-term and serious issues facing Penn South? Lloyd.
Thanks. Thank you, Aaron. Yes, I know that subject was an issue for a lot of cooperators. It's something the board had been considering for many years to deal with our real estate issues. And some of these issues are often issues that are in private negotiations and under contract negotiations, and that's sometimes issues that we as a board member can't always share with the co-op. However, would like to say that I think moving forward, it is important to share everything we possibly can. So with that in mind, that's why one of my committees, the Shared Space Committee, does open up to fellow cooperators so that when we make decisions that affect cooperators, we've had input from the cooperators and we've had every opportunity to present our ideas, and then the board makes a decision on that. With regarding commercial 5, I actually think it was an excellent move on the board's part, because in the current state in the market, real estate market now, is that we never would have been able to get anything done with that building. Interest rates are going through the roof, leases are not being held up, and we are able to maintain a constant stream of revenue for this building and increasing revenue each and every year, a guaranteed revenue source. So the most important thing that came out of that whole redevelopment of that property was, yes, a commercial space that does offer affordable housing, but something that helps protect Penn South in the long run. And that's the most important thing, is that we protect our affordability. And this move, something that we tried now, would never happen again. We'd never be able to get a development that would offers the type of revenue stream we're going to see from this project. And I got to tell you something, the building's going to be very nice. It's not too tall. It's very carefully planned out. We're going to have a great supermarket. So I think in a few years, people are going to be very happy about the outcome of this project.
Thank you, Lloyd. The next question is to Brian Hammerstein. This is directed at all candidates and comes from Jane Buchanan in Building 9. The HUD loan was described as a positive, but HUD did not notice the 4 conditions of Aristides and then did not allow a loan for repairs, forcing Penn South to lease land for luxury development. So overall, do you think the HUD loan had been a positive for Penn South, Brian?
I think the development has been a tremendous positive for Penn South for the reasons that Lloyd mentioned. And it's very much in keeping with our philosophy of affordable housing, because we were very efficient in the review and execution of the agreement with the developer. We were able to do it in time to take advantage of the 421A tax abatement that set aside 25% of the development as affordable housing for 25 years. If we had not acted so quickly, this would not have happened. And to my knowledge, we're the very last, or the building rather, is the very last recipient of 421A in Manhattan before they canceled the program for Manhattan, leaving it to continue in the outer boroughs. Those cooperators who wish to learn more about the advantageous nature of the development, I would refer to my Life at Penn South Facebook group, where we have a video of the groundbreaking ceremony that occurred recently with our president, Amber Nicosia, and our political leaders, and a very interesting speech by the developer herself. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is directed to all candidates. Comes from Jane Buchanan and is directed at Sasha. Recently, NYCHA tenants at Chelsea Elliott and Fulton Houses voted yes on a proposal by a private developer and the city to demolish the buildings and build new ones to house tenants. Combined with a new market rate housing, with this in mind, what measures would you take to resist pressure from real estate interests in preserving Penn South as it is?
Thank you. It's a really interesting question. I can't speak too much on NYCHA, we're not part of them. But if I understand, there was a lot of pressure, and it doesn't sound like it was fair at all, and it shouldn't have been done the way it was done. We are a cooperative. We own the corporation, and I don't foresee that type of situation could come to pass here. I think it's important we have people here on the board who are committed to maintaining our limited equity cooperative and not allowing that sort of thing. I did want to touch on another question that was asked, which was around the move towards carbon neutrality, and it's a very important issue to me, and definitely something we need to work towards. We have a lot of local laws to become compliant with, in addition to wanting to do it, but there's also cost savings involved. And recently, we moved earlier this year to move forward with the project to replace our primary electrical energy generation from relying on an oil boiler, which has become quite expensive, to moving to an a natural gas boiler for the engine that generates the primary load of electricity at Penn South. When we first looked at this project, it had a 7-year payback period, and with the rising energy costs, that's actually come down to just 2 to 3 short years. So we can both tackle carbon neutrality and our financial issues together. Thank you.
Thank you, Sasha. The next question is directed to Jenna Weiss. You said that I'm sorry, it's from Carol Weinstein in Building 10. You said that you encourage new modern apartment flooring. What is the new modern apartment flooring? Thank you for considering my question. Jenna?
Thanks very much. So one of the things that I do a lot at the board is I encourage thinking outside the box or outside the way we've always done things. And there were conversations at the board about these little squares, the parquet squares from the 1960s, and how very few people were making them, but we had secured a good supply of them, et cetera. And I was like, well, listen, if there's only one place that's providing them and we have to secure our supply, they're not actually standard anymore. So can we investigate what standard flooring is now, good flooring, and create a new standard for ourselves? And that's what we did. And so now the new standard is a nice red oak plank. It's very easy to resand, it's easy to replace, and it's bringing us up to date instead of just doing things the same old way. I suggested when we did HVAC that we look at not just replacing the pipes in the same old manner with the old convectors, but looking at heat pump units and maybe upgrading our electric at that point and doing heat pumps instead of redoing our pipes. And actually, that technology, we were just discussing it the other day, would be perfect right now. But at the time, the costs weren't down low enough. So I think outside of the box, and that's one of the things that I'm sort of professionally known for, but I also bring that to the board. I want to touch on the MAG question that came earlier. I'm one of the few board members who didn't vote in favor of that project. And not because it isn't necessarily turning out to be a good project, but because there were options to wait until after the pandemic to see if we could get a better deal that might actually be more in line with the cooperative's mandate or profit us in a larger way. And we actually brought in an expert who said, yep, you're absolutely right. It's bird in the hand versus what might happen later, and we absolutely might be able to do better later. And the board voted on it to that extent. My issue with MAG was the process. The fact that we could have said to shareholders, we're thinking about things other than just renovation. And that was rejected by the president at the time, which was Matt Borelli. Thank you.
Thank you. The next, Kira, this question comes from Carol Weinstein in Building 10. Where do you stand on masking mandates? Kira, you're muted. You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, the next question is for Benjamin.
I apologize. I apologize. That's right. Thank you. All right. I'm sorry. We'll go to Benjamin. I apologize again. This comes from Jane Buchanan, Building 9. It's a repeat of a previous question. On August 28th, Community Board 5 held a meeting about the Owl Bus Company applications for a long-haul bus stop at 28th and 8th. And the Penn South Board was not officially represented. So how would you handle an important city hearing occurring during the board's summer break month of August?
Can you repeat that last part of that question, please?
How would you handle an important city hearing occurring during the board's summer break during the month of August?
First of all, that's a good question because that I guess bus company would bring in traffic that might be not the best for the community. I mean, it will maybe bring in safety and manners where different people will be coming in to the community. I'm opposed to that. I feel that it is something that will change the environment because we won't know who will be coming in into this area, into the community. And as I said, not only safety, but it has a lot to do with the traffic. So you got so much that you need to think about in terms of those things coming into the community like that. I am opposed to it. I would stand up against it and be firm about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll go back to Tira now. Tira, this question was directed to you, and directed to all candidates actually, by Carol Weinstein of Building 10. Where do you stand on mask mandates?
Mask mandates, I think that it's important to follow the Board of Health guidelines, and that usually dictates what's best for us. I know COVID is on the rise and the hospitals are getting filled, and I think that each person should really follow their own mandate on what they feel is right for them. And I think that respect for each individual decision should be promoted in the community.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next round of questions will be in reverse, meaning that we will start with number 9 and move, and the last person will be obviously number 1. So the first person is Tira, because she was just number 9. She was the last person on the previous questions. Okay, Tira, this is a question that comes from Ira Glasser in Building 6A. What is your position on the recent requirement that cooperators who park their car in the 26th Street parking lot have New York license plates? Penn South certainly may require that the residents who rent this parking space be bona fide residents, and that Penn South is his or her primary residence. Penn South also may require proof of the resident's ownership or lease of the car being parked. But requiring a New York license plate accomplishes neither of these purposes. It does not necessarily verify either primary residence or ownership, and both proof of primary residence and ownership can easily be otherwise provided. Tira?
Thank you. That's a great question. And I think that if the bylaws state that the person using the parking lot needs to be a primary resident, that proof should be required to allow for that car to be present in the parking lot, or else it should be available for somebody else that's actually living here as their primary residence. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Benjamin. The question was directed to all candidates from Aaron Bruder. The issue, this question also had previously been asked. I will reread it again. The issue with commercial build number 5 were long-standing and well-known to certain members of the board. These concerns were not shared in any details with cooperatives. This security may have led to the decision to lease Penn South property to a private developer, a decision that goes against the values of Penn South. Openness about these issues could have led to a better outcome, more in keeping with the values on which Penn South was founded. Openness would not have harmed the decision-making process. Will you commit to sharing as much information as possible with cooperatives about long-term and serious issues facing Penn South?
Yes, I would do that. I think that was a very it's a good question. It's you're looking at where I guess Penn South has, I believe, made a good decision. I think it's a good decision because of the way the developers are going to proceed and get things done, and the way Penn South will be, getting, I guess, rewarded from the land lease. And I think it's going to also help, Penn South shareholders and people that are in Penn South, all right, to benefit from those things that would be there. So I'm going to be probably one of those people that will look at that and participate in it. I think it was a good decision, and I look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is to all cooperatives, but to Jennifer Feist, from Robert Silverstein in Building 6B. Again, this is a repeat of a previous question. Management has required cooperators who park their cars in the parking lot have a New York license plate. I understand the requirement of proof of primary residence and ownership of the car. Requiring New York State registrations accomplish neither purpose. Will you oppose this regulation? It makes no sense.
I think this is one of those situations where it hasn't been explained very well. And my understanding is that there are basically a requirement from HPD where they're requiring us to have the registration in the parking lot, primarily because of residents, and also there's a tax issue where people don't pay taxes on that parking. So my understanding is that this is something where we should have been enforcing it for a long time and we haven't, but the board is actually looking at it right now. That change has actually been in the paperwork for quite a while and was only just recently enforced. So it is an issue the board is looking at. And I'm going to touch on some other things that have come up. So in terms of Owl Bus, the board doesn't meet on a regular basis in the summer, but it does have special meetings when they're necessary. And we certainly do communicate and have issues that we handle. The board was aware of the Owl Stop meeting. Not everyone has chosen to speak at those meetings. And the board has sent a letter to the community board, to the board about it, asking them not to put the bus stop there. We've also reached out to community leaders and political leaders to try to stop that. Also, in terms of MAG, the commercial 5, there's two different issues. There's one issue where there's like sort of this impression that there was something deeply wrong with the building that was hidden. Nothing was hidden. The building was old. It didn't have certain amenities. And like all buildings that are 50 years old, it was not up to code. In prior years, spaces like the 23rd Street commercial space had been upgraded by new tenants. The issue that happened with MAG is that because the RFP went out and was being responded to in the middle of a pandemic, it raised issues to me of whether or not we were actually getting the offers that we should get if it was not a pandemic. And then second, once those offers started being about rebuilding or other types of reuse that were not just renovation, that's when the board should have said, hey, other things are being considered, just be aware of it, because that is obviously something the board could have said. Thank you.
Thank you. Sasha, this is directed to all candidates, but comes from Connie Tate and it's for you. Many of us live in Many of us live in apartments we occupied for a long time that are aging. Kitchens and bathrooms, infrastructures, but don't have the means to renovate. What kind of options or plan would you propose to offer affordable financing options to upgrade our apartments?
That's a really great question. I don't know that there's a simple answer to it. It's something we've definitely talked about at the board and how we can help people with the financing of that, which is unfortunately, as owners of our apartments, we do have the responsibility for. I would encourage, depending on financial situation, our senior center can be a great resource. And I know there have been grants and other financial mechanisms available over the years to help people with aging in place. And they can be a really great resource for that. It is something I dealt with in helping my grandmother as she aged in place, and ultimately at just shy of her 100th birthday, she did pass away in her apartment, as was her wishes. But yeah, modifying the apartment is a big deal, and obviously a significant cost. And it's important to do that so that to avoid accidents and falls and all of that, which is absolutely terribly scary. Yeah, I don't know as much. As a board member, I'm definitely open to new models, but I think mostly it comes down to if we can find other ways for people to get those monies through grants and other means. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Brian, this is directed to all candidates. It comes from Lydia Loscalzo in Building 2B. Hi, good luck to all of you. I wanted to ask about your stance on dogs and if you like dogs. I have a dog and walk all around, and the dog walks parallel to sidewalk, sometimes walking over the concrete into the grass. I never let my dog off leash and always pick up the mess. I also pick up the mess of other dog owners' dogs since they are too inconsiderate. Please tell me how you feel about dogs, all of you.
Well, thank you for being such a conscientious and considerate dog owner. I like dogs. I was an advocate for the dog run that we had temporarily by the old nuns' residence. And you can, if you look at that old video of the 2016 Meet the Candidates meeting, you'll see me talking about it very positively when it was being considered at that time. We have dogs at Penn South, and I think by and large people are well behaved about them. It seems to work well. I think most of the problems that we have with dog owners are with dog owners who are not Penn South residents, who come to our grounds and perhaps are not as respectful as they could be. And as far as I can tell, our security force does the best job they can in controlling that. I'd like to address some of the other items that have been asked of all cooperators regarding Jane Buchanan's question about the OWL bus meeting. I was present at that meeting. I did speak at that meeting. Everyone who attended was allowed to speak at that meeting. I was even quoted in the Chelsea News, and naturally I spoke out against the bus stop. And what many people may not know is that I've also been personally vigilant about buses parking in front of Building 9, where I live. I even went to the extent of video recording a parked bus and posting it on YouTube, and magically the bus never came back. So I like to think I've contributed a small way in keeping the front of Building 9 clear of idling intercity buses. Regarding the credit union, as far as I know, it remains the only source of bridge financing to help cooperators move from one apartment to another, particularly growing families moving into larger apartments. And I think it performs a good role in that regard. Thank you.
The next question is to Lloyd from Carol Weinstein in Building 10. Where do you stand on mask mandates?
Hi, Carol. Thanks for your email earlier about mask mandates. So in our current situation, the board followed the guidance of the city with masking. And in this administration, I believe the masking is of less concern to this administration. But I think that we also ourselves keep an eye on what's going on in our community. And I think that if we found that infections and COVID rates were going up again in a serious way, that we would have to take under consideration a mask mandate here at Penn South. I think currently, though, we have good policy in place where folks can wear a mask and if they want to, and we still have a limit on, I think, crowding in elevators, and I think hopefully this respect for that. I personally wear a mask in transit and in mass transportation and in crowded spaces. Fortunately, I think here in Penn South, we don't have that much of an issue with crowding, so I don't know that mask is necessary, but again, it's an individual choice at this point in time. I'd like to also comment about some of the things that are asked about our future planning. And it was a question about our energy plans. And I would say to everyone who's watching right now that there are major changes coming to New York City with energy requirements. Basically, what that means is that everyone's going to have to be on an electrical grid. And our current energy sources are carbon. And we have to look at planning for a number of years from now, but that the law is going to require us to make huge changes. The board is already taking major investigations by consultants and engineers to look at this, and we're doing studies to figure out, be ready for this. In fact, we hopefully will be ready before the law takes effect. So it's one of the things that the board does is forward looking. And if you read the board the minutes on the board, you'll see that's what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is to Howard Babish. The questions comes from Rachel Friedman at Building 1. How do you feel about changing the rules of the intergenerational garden to allow more cooperatives to have access to a patch? Thank you.
The garden. Well, let me reiterate something I think most people know, and Rachel, you probably know this. The garden is operated by basically an independent committee. It's not under the purview of the board. It's not under the purview of the council. I know some people recently have said, why isn't the council doing more with this? It's not operated by the council. An independent committee sets the rules and the bylaws, and they operate the committee. Yes, it's properties owned by Penn South, but again, the committee operates it. Now, having said that, if I could take a step back for a second and answer that question, not so much as a candidate for the board, but as somebody who has a patch in the garden. I love my patch. Thank God for my patch. I love my tomato plants. I love candying out the tomatoes when they ripen. There's nothing like eating a tomato ripe off the vine. But and I was on the waiting list for a long time for that patch. So I've been there. I know how frustrating it is to wait. But having said that, if the committee, the independent committee that runs the garden, decides to impose some sort of, let's call it term limits, 10-year, let's say term limits on having a patch, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think it's fair. I think we should open it up to have more rotation and have people have more access to it. It's a wonderful, wonderful resource. I mean, how many people have gardens in New York City? And to allow more people at Penn South to utilize it would be great. And if it's after 10 years, you have to leave and then go back on the list. Since we have term limits, the list will move faster and you'll be back in the garden faster. So that's basically it. Thank you.
Thank you, Howie. Next is Matt Barilli. Matt, this was comes from Jane Buchanan, Building 9. It's a repeat of a previous question. I will read it to you. On August 28th, Community Board 5 held a meeting about the Owl Bus Company application for a long-haul bus stop at 28th and 8th. And the Penn South Board was not officially represented. So how would you handle an important city hearing occurring during the board's summer break month of August?
Well, that's a tough one to get handled because a lot of people go on vacation, they're away. I do know that board members did attend the meetings and spoke. I do know that a letter was sent, but the board did not act and did not meet during that period. So I wanted to address some other questions that came up. There was a question that tied the HUD loan to the MAG deal. And I think it's important to note that the HUD loan has really saved us a huge amount of money. As we refinanced recently, and that last refinancing came in under 3%. That saves us over $1 million a year. It also mandates that we have a reserve. We've never had a mandated reserve before. We should have this reserve, and that mandated reserve has come in very handy in dealing with our capital projects that we're dealing with right now. The MAG deal has been a win for us. The dollar amount that we collect on that property going forward will be substantially more than what we were collecting before. And so again, I find that as a financial win. I want to just take a moment to comment on the garden question. I'd like to give a shout out to Gail Orr, who recently passed away. She was a tireless worker, and she is no longer with us. So I guess she gave up her plot. But again, without tireless workers like Gail Orr and Lloyd, I must say, and others who are in that, doing the heavy lifting, not just the gardening part, but running the group, that group would not survive. And Lloyd has been working very hard to establish a second green space through his shared space committee, which I believe is a possible part solution to the issues that are over there.
Thank you, Matthew. The next is to Kate Stack. This is a question was asked before. It was submitted by what's his name? Building. Sorry. Who they didn't list the name of the person. Oh, Ira Glasser in Building 6. The question basically, what is your position on recent requirements that cooperatives who park their cars in the 26th Street parking lot have a New York license plate? Do you want me to read the entire question?
No, I think I got it.
Okay.
I guess I'm a little confused by the question because as far as I know, the law is that if you are a resident of New York State, you need to have New York State plates. And so while it doesn't prove that you're a resident of Penn South to have New York State plates, if you don't have plates, you can't be a resident of Penn South. And I might be mistaken about the law, but that's my instinct about the question. I want to touch on some other topics that came up. First is carbon neutrality. I'm also a little bit confused about Sasha's response to that, because he talked about trading one fossil fuel for another in the way that we're creating power. And I understand that that saved us money, and I think that finances are really important for everybody who lives here. We are an affordable income property. But I think we also have a moral obligation to the residents here, and as well as a financial one. And I think that that should be part of the things that the board is considering in the future, not just the money, but where it is affordable to think towards our children and grandchildren and making a better world for them as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question goes to Kate Stack again, since we're now going back to the original order of 1 to 9. Again, this is a long question that has been asked before. I'll read you the preface, and then you can decide whether you want the entire question read. It comes from Aaron Broder in Building 6A. The issue with commercial building number 5 were long-standing and well-known to certain members of the board, and it ends with, will you commit to sharing as much information as possible with cooperators about long-term and serious issues facing Penn South? Do you want me to read the entire question? No, you're okay. Oh.
No, thank you. I absolutely commit to sharing whatever information I can with the cooperators at Penn South. I think that communication is essential. It's essential to people feeling respected and like a part of the community that we're in. So that is 100% something that I'm able to commit to. And it sounds like from all the information that I have that the MAG deal was the right choice to make. But the way that the choice was made doesn't sit well with me. I wish that people had been brought into the decision. Everyone who lives here, it's a huge decision to make. and they and people should have been able to participate in that. And then with the rest of my time, might start a little bit of trouble because I do want to talk about personal questions in the way that they and I want to talk about personal questions. I think that professional experience is obviously very important to board members, but I do think that our personal lives inform the professional decisions that we make, that I would make as a board member. I don't think that you can separate your personal life from the choices that you make at work on the board. I have a toddler, and if he has a meltdown in public, my response to that shows how I handle stress. And I don't think it's fair to ask someone to ignore that because my personal life has now been made public and they get to have opinions on that. I don't think the board should have the paparazzi following them around, but I do think that they should be held to a higher level of accountability than everyday residents here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Matthew. This is from Lydia Lacasco in Building 2B. This has also been asked previously. I'll give you the preface again. I want to ask you about your stance on dogs and if you like dogs. Do you want me to read the whole thing, Matthew? Okay.
I like dogs. I think we made the right decision when we allowed dogs to be legal in Penn South. We lost every case when a person decided they wanted to bring a dog in, and we are saving money by having a policy as opposed to just saying no. I would also like to comment on the car parking question. The position that I think that people are really asking, and what they talk to me about, is the registration of your car should bear the address of Penn South. I personally believe that that is what should be the case. The board has been divided on that question and has never made a decision about that. Some people register their cars at other locations. It may be in the state of New York, but they use different addresses outside of the city of New York. Our carbon neutrality is really important. The board takes it extremely seriously. We do studies. We are looking at very long-term solutions as well as short-term solutions. The long-term solutions have to pay for themselves, though. We cannot ask our cooperators to bear large increases in carrying charges if the projects that we look at take 15 years to pay for themselves. There are formulas that we do have to follow and advice that we're given that help us with that. We have looked at wind turbines, we've looked at solar, we continue to look at that, we've looked at it over the years, and it so far does not make financial sense for us to do it. We will continue to look at that. As the prices come down, we will be very open to the idea of improving our carbon footprint. Thank you.
Thank you. The next is to Howard. This question was solely to Howard, and it was from Debbie Warrenoff in Building 2B. A lot of people are talking about the need for more board transparency. What would you do as a board member to help improve communication between the board and all cooperators?
Well, transparency, I would add a nickel for every time that word is mentioned. It's a very important word, and it's a very important issue. But I went back to look at last year's forum, and the question on transparency was asked a lot, and usually it was asked with regard to the board's use of executive session. Now, executive session is necessary. There has to be executive session. There are issues that come up, for example, personnel issues. If a member of the staff is facing disciplinary charges, the discussion has to be in executive session to protect the privacy of that individual. So there is definitely a need for executive session. The question is, are all issues discussed under executive session really belong in executive session as opposed to open session? I really don't know. I've never attended, not being a board member, I never attended an executive session. If I do get on the board and I see there are issues that are in the executive session that don't belong there, I'm going to say so. There should be an open session. But I know the board has also taken some steps to improve the board minutes, and I look forward to getting the minutes and seeing what happened at each board meeting. But I'd like to see the board minutes go a little further. When I read the board minutes, I'm always interested to see the dialogue between board members and what questions were asked of management, if management's proposing a particular program, and the dialogue between board members. I'm not asking for a verbatim transcript, certainly, but if there was a little more information on the state of the dialogue in the meetings, that would be great. And in my few seconds left, if I could just quickly talk about the owl bus issue. I did also speak at the hearing and argued against it. It makes no sense that the MTA and the DOT would propose a program that's going to obviously create more traffic at a time they're imposing a congestion pricing fee to alleviate congestion. It makes no sense. It's counterintuitive, but that's typical for MTA. Thank you.
Thank you. Lloyd, this is a question, comes from Robert Silverstein in Building 6B. It's been asked previously to other participants. I'll read you the beginning sentence, and then you can decide if you want to give me to read more. Management has required cooperators to park their cars in the building lot of a New York license plate. Do you want me to continue, Lloyd, or you?
No, I think that's fine. I think Jenna Feist really answered this properly. I mean, we had to redo the contracts for parking, and there was a law that needs to be has to be adhered to, and that's why we changed the contract for parking now. And so that is a non-issue because it requires you to have an in-state plate. And personally, I think from a personal and moral ethical point of view, that if you park your car here at a significant savings as a cooperator, yes, the car should be in your name. Yes, you're a resident here, but also you should be paying taxes on your New York State plates, not for an out-of-state plate. And that to me is unfair to New York State taxpayers. If you have a plate that's at your vacation home in another state, to me, it seems like, and it's only my opinion, that you're avoiding paying taxes on something that should be going to our home state. So I want to touch on a few issues that have been brought up. Howie, you made some excellent points about executive session, and I know we try very hard, and a number of board members here tonight constantly question whether or not we need certain discussions to be an exec. Often we have questions that are in a regular board meeting that we request go to executive session because of the nature of the sensitivity of the subject. So until you're a board member, it's kind of hard actually to get your arms around some of these concepts, but it's important that we protect privacy and the financial and legal interests that are discussed at the board level. Finally, I want to thank Matthew for that shout out to Gail. And she was a great cooperator, and she just exemplifies the kind of cooperator I would love to see here. And we have many of them here where people volunteer and don't get any thanks, but commit to these types of clubs. Gail not only was a garden member, she was an active member in the ceramic studio. She was a wonderful person. And there are many wonderful people in these clubs that commit to making the clubs work. And it's just a wonderful thing for our quality of life here at Penn South. And I really encourage all of you to get active in our community in that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd. The question goes to Brian. Again, it's a repeat question from Robert Silverstern in Building 6B. It's the same question as Lloyd just answered on the parking regulations. Do you want me to read the question, Brian?
No, that's fine, Charles. I'm
Okay.
I'm very much in favor of making sure that people register their car using their Penn South address. No question about it. That's something I've always done, and I would expect other people to do the same. It's easy to enforce. You just look at the address on the registration submitted and make sure that it matches the cooperator's Penn South address.
All right, thank you. Thank you. The next question goes to Sasha. Sasha, this is a question that came from Carol Weinstein. It's been asked before. I'll repeat it. where do you stand on mask mandates?
Thank you. That's a great question. Something we deliberate as a board, and we do follow the New York City, New York State, and federal guidelines, which I do feel is the right way to proceed. It's not something we should be deciding one way or the other as a co-op. I want to touch on some of the other questions that have come up. One of them around the executive session. We did pass in the public minutes policy on that severely restricts the use of executive session. I hope all shareholders familiar with that. It's the March 2018 board meeting, which is available on our website. Thanks, Jenna and I, for pushing to get our minutes are on the website for all shareholders to log in and see. And there was another question I got actually from a meeting with people in the community in person, in real life, I guess you'd say. And that question, which I thought was really great, was what's the largest capital improvement coming up? And I actually presented on this earlier this year at the Co-Council for over an hour, so I'll try to condense that down into a very short amount of time. But local law 97 compliance, and it's kind of what I was getting at before with the replacement of the oil engine, that gets us through the first tranche, which comes due in the next years, next 2 years. And the next tranche, due to us being limited equity housing, is expanded from 2030, pushed out to 2034. For that tranche, we're exploring much broader, truly carbon neutral solutions that will really move us away from fossil fuels. And those are multi-year projects that really get into rethinking the way we deliver electricity, heat, hot water, everything we do in our power plant. I'm not sure what time it is, because there's no clock showing for me.
Okay, thank you, Sasha. Jenna, this question is also asked previously, comes from Jane Buchanan in Building 9. I'll read you the question. You've heard it before, but recently, NYCHA tenants at Chelsea Elliott and Fulton Houses voted yes on a proposal by a private developer and the city to demolish the buildings and build new ones to house tenants. Combined with new market rate housing, with this in mind, what measures would you take to resist pressure from real estate interests and preserving Penn South?
Thanks so much. Again, the way that we resist real estate interests is to manage the company very well, manage this corporation well, and not be in a cash crunch, right? And part of that is planning well. Part of that is being transparent with other board members so that they know what's going on. And part of that is being transparent with the community so that our shareholders know what's going on. And that's why I say, when I look for my own vote, what I'm looking for is not just experience, but also transparency and honesty. A lot of people have spoken today about how they will bring, common sense and a rootedness to being a board member who are not yet on the board. But I also think that there have been some questions about things that happened with the credit union, for example. And, there's a long history with the credit union, but if you just go back 5 years, that is something where, I understand Matthew is no longer a board member of the credit union. He's resigned from that. I understand that since last year, recently, Brian has resigned from being a board member of the credit union, an employee of the credit union. So bringing those issues to light has, created a situation where those conflicts are no longer there. But, transparency, trustworthiness, honesty, these are things that people really need to have as board members. And I think it's something that we need to consider. So I don't think personal questions are out of bounds when it's about things like, are you serving on the board or an employee of a different corporation in violation of bylaws that say that you can't have an interest in another, a tenant, or that you can't take anything of value from someone who we do business with, or that, other bylaws. So those are important questions and they shouldn't not be asked. Thank you.
Thank you. Benjamin, this question also comes from Robert Silverstone, Building 6B. It's a question asked previously. Risk management has required cooperators park their cars in parking lot to have a New York license plate. Do you want me to read the entire question, Benjamin? Or since you heard it before?
No, you don't have to read the.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Well, I've heard so much about, the parking lot, and I think I agree with what has been said about the parking lot is that if you have a New York license plate and you live here, you should, that should agree. You shouldn't, the other thing is that it keeps a good record of who is here. All right, because if you got a lot of different license plates, you don't know who's in the parking lot. So I think that that things have moved to the fact that you will be able to know who is in the parking lot by the license plate and by where they live, and that should be it. Nothing else. All right. Otherwise, you're going to create and have a problematic situation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next question goes to, and the last on this round, goes to Tira. This question also had been asked previously. It comes from Jane Buchanan, Building 9. I'll read you the question if you want me to stop at any point, because you've heard it before. On August 28th, Community Board 5 held a meeting about the Owl Bus Company applications for a long-haul bus stop at 28th and 9th, at 8th rather, and the Penn South Board was not officially represented. So how would you handle an important city hearing occurring during the board's summer break of month of August?
Thank you, Charles. Well, first of all, if there's a meeting like that and I'm elected to the board, I will be present. And what I've heard tonight is that there were a lot of people on the board present and they all got a chance to speak. And so the question confuses me because it seems that people were there and they did speak from the board. All I know is if I was elected to the board, I would be there and I would definitely be speaking. And I happen to know that the bus stop is upsetting the residents. I've heard it personally, and I will do all that I can to protest against it in the same way that I did the NTA. I will do all I can to advocate against it because it's upsetting the residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
also, wait, I have a little more time
Sure.
left. So I just wanted to share that if I am elected to the board, that these are concepts worthy of investigation. It's fair to share the garden with term limits. And we should only have primary residents in the parking lot. If somebody can afford another residence and they have their car in our parking lot, in an affordable housing parking lot, I don't think that's fair. Regarding carbon neutral, by law, we must phase out the use of fuels and switch to renewable energy. And I support that because it reduces the amount of global warming. Finally, I love dogs, but I have my little baby and she's a kitty cat. Thank you.
Thank you, Tira. Thank you. Okay, now it's now time for closing statements. We will reverse the order from last time. The candidate who spoke last during the opening statements speaks first now. Each candidate has 2 minutes to make their closing statement. We will start with Tira Bluestone.
Thank you, Charles. Most of you know that I have worked with the Board of Ed for the last 25 years, but you might not know that besides my master's degree in special needs education, I also minored in business, and I single-handedly created a legal brief that want a reversal of the decision of the Appellate Division of the Supreme Court of New York City. So I might look like a fun-loving gal, and I am a fun-loving gal, but I also have quite a bit of professional experience under my belt, and I'm not afraid to use it. You might also not know that I got out of Israel just hours before the war started. So today, I'm grateful to be alive. And I believe I am still alive to do great things. And I believe one of those great things is serving this wonderful community on the board. And in closing, I wrote a very short, simple, fun song just for you, and it goes like this. My name is Tira Bluestone, and I'm here to say, vote for me to the Penn South board. I believe in transparency. You are very lucky I have come your way. I believe in affordable housing and tightening security. I have been a resident of this community for over a decade, my extended family. My name is Tira Bluestone, and I'm here to say, vote for me to the Penn South board. I believe in transparency. Vote for me to the Penn South board if you want to be happy. Thank you. I'm Tara
Thank you,
Bluestone,
Tara.
and I approve of this message.
Thank you. That's a wonderful ending. Thank you very much, Tara. The next is Benjamin.
I am honored to be a candidate, and I have been, as said, on 2 different boards. I was on the Tax Reassessment Board in Austin, New York for 8 years, and that was a tremendous board to be on. It allowed and afforded me the ability to determine what taxpayer would pay for their property. And the other board I was on for 4 years, which was a medical board. It was also a board, but not as interesting as that other board. I am asking you to consider voting for me. I am committed, and because I care. I care about your safety. I care about your comfort. I care about your well-being. And I just want to also say that it is about working together to build a strong community. I will use my leadership skills. I will use my interpersonal skills to connect with the shareholders and tenants. I will be open to talking to anyone at any time that will help be helpful for the well-being of the shareholders. I am a community person. I believe in myself, and I thank each of you for this opportunity, and I ask you to please vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Jana?
Thanks so much. I didn't prepare any remarks, so I'll see if there's anything else that was touched on. I think micromobility came up at one point. The board has a micromobility committee that is looking at how to safely allow those devices into the buildings, whether it will be special storage units or whether it will be inspection. Obviously, determining what can be inspected and allowed and not is a really big issue that needs to be worked through on a committee. So there is a committee already doing that. And I think I touched on everything else. So again, you know, I live here. I was born here. Literally, I was born here. I was one of the first kids probably born here. And my family lives here. My sister lives here as well as myself. I'm very dedicated to the cooperative. I'm dedicated to representing you. I mean, ask around when people tell me they have a problem, I try to solve it. You know, I am someone who raises issues at the board all the time, brings things to the attention of Ryan and management and operations, asks for solutions to be met. whether they're solutions for a single disabled cooperator or for a group of cooperators that live in a certain type of apartment that's having, flooding trouble, for example. The new scuppers we put in was part of a conversation that I started at the board after hearing about the flooding that was happening. So again, I really feel like if you're on the board, you're there to work for shareholders. And I think there are board members who do that with the shareholders in mind, at the forefront of their mind. I think Sasha is one of those board members. I think Lloyd is one of those board members. I think I'm one of those board members. And I think there are other board members who are, not there to listen to the shareholders, but to sort of impose their will. And that's not who I want to vote for my representative, and it's not how I will represent you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Sasha?
Thank you. Thank you for a great event this evening. I'm running for re-election to the board of directors because we need to keep Penn South affordable and limited equity. We need to contain costs and keep Penn South well managed and well maintained. I will continue to help steer Penn South through the changing energy landscape, controlling costs, making smart decisions, and working to improve our carbon footprint. We need transparency and accountability to ensure that information is readily accessible to cooperators. We need to embrace technology to allow us to do more and lower costs. Throughout my 9 years on the board and my 9 years on the co-op council, I have and will continue to advocate for cooperator involvement in key decisions. As a board member, I work to represent the needs of all cooperators through outreach and engagement. As the board liaison to the co-op council, I make it a point to listen to the council and the broad community it represents. I am deeply committed to the core values that Penn South was built on. I am strongly committed to limited equity and affordability. I have worked to keep Penn South a vibrant community and I am committed to continuing to do so. We must preserve the diversity of Penn South for years to come and embrace equality and equity in our community. Vote for me for re-election to the Penn South Board of Directors as first vice president. I will continue to work tirelessly for you and to provide leadership and oversight to help make sure Penn South is running smoothly today and in the days and years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Brian?
Thank you, Charles. We should make it convenient for cooperators to use their smartphone camera to show security illegally parked vehicles, vagrants, or construction violations. We should speed the availability of online maintenance ticket submission so you do not have to wait on hold for a staff member just to report a problem. I have a record of effecting change at Penn South. When a majority of the board thought we did not need more washers and dryers, I traveled to a comparable co-op and documented the number of bedrooms per machine to show we needed more machines. When we specified our underground network years ago, I advocated and secured redundant enterprise-class gigabit switching that ran uninterrupted for 14 years until we upgraded to an entirely new network last year. That allowed us to grow our security camera fleet without any significant new network investment over that period. For years, my blind friend Alex and I have ridden my tandem bicycle to destinations all over the city. One day, while riding over the Brooklyn Bridge, the drive chain snapped. No bike shop stocked the special chain required. I was at fault because I did not bring an extra chain. Alex was at fault because he had shifted too many times without the bike in motion. Rather than arguing or attempting to assign blame, we simply got off the bike and walked back to Penn South. What did Alex say after we walked 3 miles, pushing a tandem bicycle? He said, without a hint of hostility, sarcasm, or irony, "Brian, thanks for a nice walk." That's the kind of tolerance and optimism we need more of on our board and in our cooperative. We need to celebrate our strengths, tolerate our differences, and work together for the benefit of Penn South. Thank you.
Thank you. Lloyd,
Thank you, everyone who is attending tonight. I humbly ask for your vote so I can continue the work on the board. It's been going on. I have goals to bring more quality of life issues to our co-op. As I mentioned earlier, we have a need for a music studio because we have many musicians in the co-op and students who can't practice during the day or night because of disturbing neighbors. And this is something management has stated would be a good solution. And we are working on establishing a music studio. We also have an art studio that's about ready to open next year for the same reason that artists need space where they can paint and a special environment. And that is something that's also coming to fruition. And most recently, we advocated and are planning to have an adult rec room because we found through surveys and through information that while we have services for toddlers and teens and for our seniors, there's not a lot of activity offered to folks between 18 and 65. And so we hope to have a club where there'll be pool table and ping pong and a way for cooperators to engage with each other and to connect. And that's a big thing here in Penn South for folks to connect. And that's how we stay as a community, as we stay together. And the board needs to connect with each other also, support each other. It's very important to me that we support each other and not do the opposite, where we criticize other board members. It's inappropriate. And it's happened here tonight, and I'm disappointed. But that said, I'm about what I'm doing. I ask for your vote because I want to bring community together. I hope that you'll consider me, Lloyd Blazen, for another term here on the board of directors. Thank you very much.
thank you, Lloyd. Howard,
Well, thanks, Charles. And first, I'd like to thank you, Charles, and Bob, and the election committee for hosting this event. So why am I running for the board? I guess my reasons are basically twofold. One altruistic, one selfish. Altruistic in the sense that I think I have a lot of experience, 10 years on the co-op council, serving on 2 previous co-op boards, serving on 2 community boards. I have 30 years of policy analysis and planning experience with the city of New York and 6 municipal agencies. I think that would be an enormous asset to the board. But also, having said that, serving on the board and using all that experience to achieve things that are good for the people of Penn South would be enormously satisfying to me. So there's the selfish reason. But if I learned anything from all the boards and all the organizations that I've sat on, without consensus, nothing can be done. You cannot take the attitude that it's going to be my way or the highway. You can't have 15 people bickering, or you can't have people of different mindsets sitting in a room and arguing, and nothing's going to get accomplished. There has to be consensus, there has to be compromise, there has to be meeting of minds. And that's what I think I could bring. I've had experience doing that. I've achieved consensus on many a board, and I hope I could bring that to this board. And I know most of the members of the current board. A lot of them are my friends. I've worked with them in the past. Many of them have endorsed my candidacy, and I think I could work with them, and they could work with me, and we'll have a successful board experience. Thank you very much.
thank you. Matthew,
So why am I running for the board? I've been on a long time, and maybe people are getting tired of me. But For the sake of transparency, I'm running for the board. For the sake of transparency, I would like everybody to look at our annual reports. Go back to 2018 and look at each year. You will see that our revenues have increased 14.4%, but our operating expense has increased 25.6%. This is unsustainable. We have a problem. And as a board member who I think is qualified to help lead this problem out of the woods, I'm running again. These numbers don't include capital expenses. They don't include mortgage payments. So we're looking at possible carrying charge increases. I'm going to say it plainly. You can't say that it's not been said to the whole community. I assume they're going to listen to this. That's why I'm running. I think the community needs to know short term what we're facing. It's very important. Long term, we could do a better job to avoid these sudden increases. And there are ways to do that. As I said, our HUD loan mandates a reserve, which has been very useful and has kept things smooth recently. But we will have to replace that. So I think I'm uniquely qualified to help lead this process. And I ask you to vote for me one more time. Thank you very much.
And Kate?
I'm running for the board because I believe in respect, transparency, and accountability. And I don't always feel that from the current board. But I do think I understand why I don't feel that. It's difficult to be a leader. It's easy to make decisions in a closed room and declare that those decisions are correct without an explanation. It's easy to ignore criticism and pretend you're always right. It's difficult to communicate effectively with large groups of people. It's difficult to collaborate with people who disagree with you. It's difficult to find creative solutions to big problems. And it's difficult to be held accountable for your actions and your choices. But I can do difficult things. I can do them for this place that I'm so proud to be part of. As a member of the oldest theatrical union in the United States, IATSE Local 1, I am honored to be part of the union legacy started here at Penn South in 1962. I want Penn South to be the best that it can be. I want everyone who lives here to be treated with kindness, to be well informed, and to feel like part of the community. I'm not afraid of hard work, and I'm not afraid of accountability. I can do difficult things, and if I'm elected, I will do them for you. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank, as we finish, and I'll move on to Bob Korsky, who will have the concluding statement. I want to thank you all for participating, presenting your views in very strong manner. It's very important for the cooperators to hear them. They'll make the decision on whose view they like best and whose background they like best, and in the case of board members, their work on the board. So good luck to everybody, and I'll see you at the next event, which will be in-person event in Building 8. Thank you. Bob?
Yes, I was waiting for the camera to switch over to me and to speak. But these are actually our concluding remarks. We thank you all for coming here. We thank the candidates, and we thank for everybody who watched this or will watch this, because we know that this is recorded and many people will watch it at a time that's convenient for them, and that's important for them. If you have questions for any of the candidates that was not answered, remember we're also going to host 2 informal meet and greet candidates events as part of the election cycle. These events are not recorded, and they occur in person in community rooms within the co-op. For more on these events, you can go to Penn South website at pennsouth.court. we'd like to remind you again that your participation in the annual election is very important. The Penn South bylaws require that an election be held every year to elect a new board. The ballots must be cast by at least 940 eligible voters. This represents a quorum of 1/3 of our cooperative households. If we don't have a quorum, the election must be repeated at considerable cost. And of course, it reminds me of the House of Representatives in Washington. So let's not do this. We all have to take our place and we have to cooperate in the election, even if you only vote for the sake of a quorum. And there will be a place on the ballot for that. Please look at the mail for your directed proxy form. Instructions for submitting your proxy and for voting in person are included in the packet of information that's sent to all households. If you submit a proxy but later change your mind, you may vote in person on the date of the annual meeting. Your in-person vote will supersede your proxy. This year, the Penn South annual meeting is on Sunday, November 12th, 2023 at 12 noon. The event will be virtual. You can watch it live on the Penn South website, pennsouth.coop, and on RCN channel 99. After the presentation has occurred, we will display a phone number and a Zoom link on the screen for shareholders to ask questions. A recording of the presentation will also be available online. Again, thank you all very much for joining us for the 2023 Penn South Candidates Forum. And remember, your cooperation and in supporting your co-op in some way or fashion is very, very important. So keep active. Thank you.